Welcome to our ELLICSR Kitchen class for February. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have some new people here and some old faces too, so welcome back. We have a very exciting class for you. Not Danielle today. This is not Danielle. That's a surprise. We have Carole-Anne, one of our other amazing registered dietitians at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. My name is Jeremy Carole. I'm a wellness chef for cancer rehab and survivorship. And like I mentioned, we have a special class today. I'm going to throw it over to Carole-Anne in a second. A couple housekeeping, because I see a few people watching online. If you have any questions, go ahead and type it in the chat. If you have any questions during the class, feel free to ask away as well. Okay? Carole-Anne, welcome. Tell us about yourself. Hello.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
My name is Carole-Anne. I am a registered dietitian across the street at the Princess Margaret Cancer Center. I'm part of a team of dietitians over there and we all specialize in specific cancer treatments so that we can best support folks who are going through treatment there. My specialization is in head and neck cancers. So what I do from day to day is I speak with people who are going through these treatments and are having more difficulty eating. Obviously, if you have cancer in your head and your neck, it's more difficulty chewing, more difficulty swallowing, and it can be quite a challenge to maintain your nutrition when eating becomes so tricky. And especially what we wanted to do here today is create some recipes, and Jeremy has been an absolute genius and a wonder to work with. Create some recipes that would help support specifically head and neck cancer patients, folks who are maybe choosing more liquidy foods rather than really hard to chew, hard to swallow. So we've created a couple of recipes, some that are drinkable liquids, some that are a little bit, require minimal chewing, very easy to swallow, and most importantly, high in protein, high in calories, because those are really the essential nutrients. When you're wherever you are at in your cancer treatment, whether it's you're undergoing treatment, you're after treatment, we need to make sure you're getting the calories and the protein in through your nutrition.
Wonderful. Thank you, Carole-Anne. Welcome. And ready to jump right into it?
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to start off with our first recipe. Like Carole-Anne mentioned, our focus is easier to swallow. We're going to actually go through a few methods as well on how to make sure, we're at the right thickness for our fluids. So we'll show you that, a few tips and tricks. And flavor-wise, we're playing with a few options as well. I will mention throughout the class where you can make substitutes. Okay, so you have the recipes here. If you're watching online, the recipes will be posted on our website. But we'll make notes on where you can make some of those changes, but still hit those markers for protein and calories and that texture.
That we need. Also, all of our recipes are dairy-free. And we did that on purpose because we know there's lots of folks out there who are lactose intolerant or just don't digest dairy that well. And when you're on a liquid diet, it's very difficult to meet your calorie needs, meet your protein needs without using dairy products. So Jeremy hit it out of the park and has come up with some amazing alternate sources of protein and calories. Of course, when you are cooking in your own kitchen, we're going to talk about substitutes that would be dairy-based, because those are very nutritious foods, and where they would maybe fit into some of these recipes.
Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to jump into the first recipe. We're making a creamy tahini and carrot soup. Two flavors that Oh, sorry. They had a question. No worries. You're all good. You're all good.
Siri's a fan too.
Yes. Yeah. Siri wants to know what we're making. All right. So we're going to start off with some onion and garlic, simple aromatics. I've just roughly chopped some onion. The garlic, we just sort of crushed it. It's a massive clove, so you can sort of dial that back if you want. But also we were talking about, like, if garlic and onion, maybe you don't tolerate it that well, leave it mostly in its whole state. So with the garlic, again, just like slightly crush it. That's going to go into our oil. So we have some olive oil here. And our onion, instead of finely chopping it, even like quarter it, just so it's a big piece. It's going to do its job as it's sort of softening and sweating in terms of imparting its flavor in the oil. Then we can easily like scoop those pieces out afterwards, so that we're not eating it, and it's not going to the finished product.
Because many folks I speak to, things like garlic, things like onion could cause some sensitivity if you have sores in your mouth, or if you're very sensitive to spices or strong flavors. And that's a great, thank you so much for that trick, Jeremy. It's a great way to experiment with what you can tolerate and see, whether if you, leave it in big chunks, you can get a little bit of the flavor without that bite in your mouth.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to soften this medium heats, medium-high heats. The key here is because we're looking for a very smooth texture, we don't want to actually caramelize the onions and the garlic. So, when we talk about caramelization, that's sort of Maillard reaction when we're cooking food. That means flavor. We're sort of getting those natural sugars out. In this case, that caramelization will give you like these crispy edges and crispy bits, which will be a little harder to puree. We are going to show you a way that we can pass it through a sieve, through a strainer, just to capture all those pieces. But otherwise, for this case, we just want to just sort of sweat or soften the aromatics. Okay, I don't want to create too much color in this case.
That's a really good tip, because the texture of the food and the ease of blending is super important for folks I speak to on a day-to-day basis. Even like that creaminess texture is the best tolerated, and even like small changes in that texture in the food can come off as like sandpaper inside the mouth. So just knowing like we want to get those vegetables in if we can, how to prepare them so that they don't cause that irritation in the throat is super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I did add a little pinch of salt while you're talking. So this is a nice little trick as well to sort of slow down that caramelization, because what the salt will do is it'll start to draw out that moisture, that water out of my aromatics, especially like the garlic and the onion, quicker. And because it's drawing it out quicker, it's going to slow down that potential for that color and that caramelization. If I do want, so that's also another trick, if I do want that color, I do want that caramelization, don't salt right away. Salt after, because you're going to promote better color if you don't salt right away. Okay, so that's just sort of a tip on depending on what you're trying to achieve there. So soften, aromatics, whatever you like here. I'm going to add some carrots. So very simple recipe. I think, carrots, pretty accessible. Peel it and just roughly chop it, and we're going to go ahead and add this as well. You can add instead, you can use squash, you can use sweet potato. The things that we want to try to limit, especially because we're trying to achieve a specific smooth texture, is anything that has a lot of skins and seeds. So your vegetables that have a lot of skins and seeds, that's going to create issues when we're trying to blend it.
Like a pepper maybe wouldn't work as well.
Yeah, like a pepper, unless it's a roasted pepper.
And you take the skin off.
Exactly. So roasted peppers are fantastic because the skin is off. Make sure that there's no seeds in there, and those puree really, really well. But anything that might have a lot of seeds, like even like eggplant, sometimes there's a lot of seeds, and then the skin as well, which you could peel, but just try to limit the amount of seeds and skin. We are passing it through, like I mentioned, but again, just to make it the process a little bit easier. Okay, so
we're thinking carrots, squash.
Yeah, carrot, squash, sweet potato.
All good options.
Roasted peppers, like I think those peppers would actually be a really good option as well. Okay, so we have. Maybe I'll go a little bit more, minute or two, but we're teaching a live class, so we got to speed things up. Okay, so we're gonna play around with our new camera. We'll get in here so you can see, yes, oohs and ahs. We have, like, you can see, I don't have color, but the onions are starting to go translucent, and they're just softening. So that's pretty much where I want to take it. If you wanted to add other spices, you can definitely do that at this point as well. For us, we do want to keep it on the milder side, right? And so we're not going to be adding much more to this. Mm-hmm. But another trick as well, if I did want to add some like bay leaf or peppercorns or whole spices that, again, we don't want in the finished product because of the risk of choking, Another tip is to use a sachet, or we call like a bouquet garni, or a sachet, which is just some cheesecloth. You put your spices in that cheesecloth, you bundle it up, and then add it to your soups, your broths, your stocks. And that way, all those whole spices are contained. So I can easily take that bag out.
You can fish it out.
You can fish it out, and you're not worried about that sort of passing on to the final product. It also gives you more control in terms of flavor, right? If I like tasted it and like, okay, that clove level is good, I can fish it out versus having to like try to find a clove in like a pot of soup. Good luck, right? So that's another tip as well. Carrots going in. We're adding about a cup and a half. I'm making a smaller pot here, but
I would definitely say re-spices, even like the peppercorn, anything, even like a white pepper. I find the folks I speak with just don't tolerate it that well. It is too spicy. Their mouths are very sensitive after treatment, but definitely like warming spices. So like a cinnamon or, maybe a little bit of cumin or those kinds of, or herbs would work really well with the bay leaf, with the oregano, with thyme and rosemary. But you're able to keep them in that bouquet, so you're not getting like a little piece of rosemary leaf, because that could be really painful. That would work really well.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so carrots in, give it a little stir, and then cover it with liquid. This is a pretty simple recipe. The liquid that we choose is up to you, and up to depending on your needs as well. I'm using a veg broth here, but here's an opportunity, I guess, if you wanted to bump up the calories. And the protein, what else could we do?
Thank you so much for asking, Jeremy. Bone broth. So we are huge fans of bone broth. I suggest it to a lot of patients. It is a way to increase the protein in a brothy soup. So when you think chicken broth, vegetable broth, beef broth, if it's in a little cube and it's kind of just your normal, or even if you make it yourself and you kind of stew some bones or some chicken, there is no protein in that liquid. It is mostly just water with some electrolytes, some vitamins, some minerals, but it's not a source of hearty nourishment. The only exception being bone broth, which is either something that you can make at home by boiling the bones, and I'll let Jeremy explain a little bit of that after, or you can buy it in stores. Sometimes it can be sold powdered, or it is in a carton. You know it's bone broth, it'll say it's bone broth, and in the nutrition facts, you'll see that there is at least 9 grams of protein, 10 grams of protein per serving in it. And this is a way, lots of folks don't get sick of creamy soups, right? By adding cream, by adding milk to increase the calories. So bone broth's really lovely and accessible that way. So for some more variety.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so we are lid on. We're going to let this simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes, just until the carrots are nice and soft. An easy little test is you take one of those carrots out on your cutting board and you take a fork and you crush the carrots with your fork. And you should be able to easily crush it, okay? A little test that we use is if you start to see your thumbnail blanch, so it starts to go white, and you're applying too much pressure, so it's not soft enough, okay? It should be easily crushable, and that means it's going to puree really nicely, and I'm not going to be left with any sort of solid bits at the end, okay? So cook it to that point. Once it's soft enough, we blend. And now our 2 little ingredients here.
I was going to ask Jeremy.
Yes.
So far, this soup just has vegetables and water,
yes,
which are lovely and wonderful, but they're not going to be providing you with a lot of hearty nutrition to help you maintain your weight, recover after treatment, rebuild those muscles, rebuild those tissues. Where's the protein?
Where's the protein? Yes. So protein, we're using silken tofu for this, and we're going to be using some tahini. Tahini is going to add some protein, it's got some calories.
What is tahini, Jeremy?
Tahini is, great question. Tahini is, it's sesame paste, essentially. So
it's little sesame seeds?
Sesame seeds, but it's sort of blended into a paste. So you can find it in most grocery stores, and it should just be 100% sesame seeds, ground.
Usually, I think I find it in the international aisle,
So,
maybe
yes,
in the health foods aisle.
Yeah.
It's a common ingredient in hummus. So that's what gives hummus that flavor.
Yes.
That nutty flavor.
You got it, exactly. It's going to have a little bit of that nuttiness. It will have sort of a slight bitter note to it. So it actually pairs well with sweeter ingredients. So that carrot and the tahini together will be really well balanced. If you can't find tahini and you have peanut butter would actually be fantastic in this. So you can definitely use peanut butter. Any other nut butters, if sunflower seed, almond butter, whatever you like, go for it. But today we're using tahini.
Yeah, I love tahini because it is a great source of fibers, right? It is on a blend. If let's say if you're only able to tolerate liquids by mouth, your nutrition is coming from liquids, it can be hard to get fiber in because that fiber by definition is something that is a harder carbohydrate that is usually rougher in texture. So something like a blended nut butter, a completely smooth nut or seed butter can be a great source of fiber, great source of protein. And because it's a seed, it is very rich in unsaturated fats, which are very healthy fats.
Yeah. So the reason I don't add it during the cooking process is it may split a bit in terms of the fat and the actual the seed and like that sort of fiber that's in it itself, and it makes it a little bit grainier. And as during the testing process, we were kind of sorting through this. So I find it works best just blending it once it's done. Once it's ready, put it in the your blender, and then add it and blend it. And the same with the silken tofu. I'm going to add it at that point too. I'm adding
Silken tofu is a really, really good hack. I was so happy to see it in this recipe. It is found with the other tofus at the grocery store. So usually they hold them near the eggs. It's refrigerated, so it's usually going to be a refrigerated section. Tofu is, if you're not familiar with it, is basically like the equivalent of cheese from milk, but from soy milk. So you take the curds from the soy milk. It's made from soy. It's very smooth, very creamy. You can get different kinds of tofu depending on how much water you've pressed out of it. So the silken tofu is actually really soft and, like in its name, very silky. It's a great source of protein. It's a great texture. It doesn't have dairy, and it works for savory and sweet. So in this recipe, it's a savory recipe. We're mixing it in for protein and energy, and it's going to be savory. But in a smoothie, there's dessert tofu at the grocery stores. They flavor it with almonds, with fruits. Very, very versatile.
Yeah. Okay, so we're adding that at the end, and we are blending until smooth, until we have a really, really nice sort of creamy texture.
Are we going to do our camera trick again?
Yeah, let's do the camera trick. Let's do it.
Look at the color. Oh, they can't see the color.
Wait, ready? And
look at the color. It's a beautiful yellow color. Look at the texture. It's so smooth, so silky, and so nourishing.
So this is essentially the texture we're looking for. And again, no dairy, but that's an option if you did want to bump the calories up.
Absolutely.
More,
cream would increase the calories. You could use milk instead. Let's say you don't have any silken tofu at home. Any kind of blended vegetable soup usually uses cream, usually uses milk, and it would work really well in this recipe as well.
Yes. I'm going to ahead and plate this up. Do we want to do a little testing?
Yes.
Okay. So
for many of the folks that I work with day to day, may have swallowing difficulties, or it's also called dysphagia. And if your healthcare team has told you that it's not safe to drink water as it is, or thin fluids, really runny, clear fluids, that is something that we have to take into account when making soups, right? If it's really runny and it's like a super liquidy, it is possible that it could go down the wrong way, and that could have serious medical consequences. So one of the ways that we test to make sure that the soup is the right consistency is by doing the ELLICSR test. Am I in the camera? Ooh, I'm going out of camera.
Come over here.
I'm bringing all my stuff over.
Yeah.
I'm moving in. Oh, is that off camera? No one has to know. So the ELLICSR test is for testing the consistency and this of a liquid to make sure it's thick enough that it's safe for you. And if your healthcare team has said that you need to have mildly thick liquids, so that is kind of the first line. There's mildly, moderately, a variety there. This recipe fits mildly thick recommendations. And the way you test that is you have a 10 milliliter syringe, you take the plunger out, and you're going to fill it to the top with your liquid. Here, it goes up to 10 milliliters. You're going to have to plug the bottom. And Jeremy, could you bring my phone with the timer over?
Yes.
All right.
Just a little off camera.
Oh no, that's true. They can't see. Jeremy, can you bring me over closer?
Yes. Use your thumb
I need
for
you.
a timer.
All right.
Okay.
So we're gonna do this on camera, and you're gonna edit out all the parts where I wasn't doing it right.
Absolutely.
Right? Jeremy? You have that capacity?
Here, you know what? Actually, move over more. Go on to money. Yeah.
I'm going over.
There.
Okay.
Okay.
So here's my 10 milliliter syringe. I'm halfway through filling it to the 10 milliliter mark. There you go. And for it to be mildly thick, I'm going to run my timer for 10 seconds, and it needs to be there needs to be fluid filled up from either 8 milliliters to 4 milliliters. It can't go completely run all the way through. Are you ready?
Let's do
3,
it.
2, 1. See how it's dripping through and going down? How are we doing?
5,
4, 3, 2, 1.
Stop.
4 milliliters. So this is mildly thick. Let's say you added more milk, and now your soup is thinner, and it runs all the way through to the bottom, and your syringe is empty. That means it's too thin for you. And do we have anything we can do if our soup is too thin, Jeremy?
Yes.
Thicken it up a bit.
So we can do a couple things. Like you can add more. We're gonna leave this. You can add more if you had like more carrots or something.
Would a potato work?
Potato cooked, like as long as
Okay,
it's cooked and
potato.
soft, you can do that. You can use a thickener. You can
Mhm.
use like a mildly thick, thicken up clear, like one of those.
Add it to some broth, maybe.
Exactly.
Have it thicken, and then add the thickened broth to your soup, and
Yes.
then retest it.
Yes, yeah, to thicken it up a little bit more. Sometimes, depending on what's in the soup, if you reduce it a little bit more,
So keep cooking it.
keep
on the
cooking it,
stove.
then it will thicken up a little bit, and then you can retest. Like especially if you're close, if it's really thin, then you're probably going to want to use a thickener,
Yeah.
or if you had like some like cooked carrots or cooked potato, and then just reblend that in to thicken it up
Perfect.
more. Yeah, fantastic,
Awesome.
great testing.
Thank you.
No spills.
No spills. So wild. No spills.
And then just quickly as well, the sieve process. So this is always, especially if you are looking for super smooth and you don't want any sort of bits and textures that may have not got blended down properly. These Tammys are really great. So you can find these most kitchen supply stores, Amazon. Has a fine mesh sieve. And what I would do is right after I have blended my soup, my product, throw it over your bowl, and then pour it through your Tammy, and then just gently press that through with your spatula. And that way, any of those uncooked pieces or like larger chunks, or like a sprig of rosemary or something, will get caught in your sieve and Tammy. Okay, so extra little process if needed.
Amazing. Thank you so much for this high calorie, high protein blended soup recipe.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna plate it up now.
I was just going to add as well, a lot of the times, we talk to patients about naturally thickened liquids. Because patients don't want to be mixing up the thicken up all the time.
Mhm.
This is a great example of one that's just naturally thickened through the ingredients of the process. So, great recipe.
Love that. Thank you. All right, so we've plated our soup as is, and then if you didn't need it to be super thin, then you can garnish it. You can throw in some get chefy, throw in some
What's
ingredients.
over there in your garnish pot?
My little garnish secret pot over here. We have just some chives. Now that you ask.
Beautiful.
So again, simple carrot, tahini, are going to be sort of your two main.
My preferred garnish is more olive oil.
Ooh.
This, can we do a decorative one?
Let's
So
I don't know.
This is an artistic and beautiful way to add more calories to your soup. A tablespoon of olive oil is around 100 calories. Obviously, we don't want to be calorie counting every day, but if you are really mindful, your weight is going down, you need to be getting the energy in. By garnishing with olive oil when it's already on your plate, that's a great way to boost the calories in a recipe.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'll just do that final shot. I'm not going to do a tip, but there you go. So our cream carrot and tahini soup recipe.